Yes and no. Yes and no. I kind of was a bit disappointed because when somebody is accused of doing things which are of an intellectual nature, I usually expect there are a lot of intellectuals within the ruling system who have and can counter some of the things that I put out there without necessitating, arrest, torture, and things like that.
You expect them to respond the way you are writing?
Yes, because if I'm somebody who is exhibiting violent tendencies, if I was caught with a gun, if I was throwing stones on the street or something like that, then that would be the way to handle it. But if I am handling things intellectually, through discourse, whichever verbal or through my writing, I kind of expect them to come along the same lines.
Some measure of intelligence. Yeah. Did you recognize anybody?
No, I didn't recognize anybody.
Okay. What was it like for you when you were being taken in? What were you thinking when you were picked up?
Of course, I've come to understand how these things happen. So somebody comes to me and tells me he's from the police force and he wants to interview me shortly and asks me to get away from where I am. So I kind of knew where this was heading. So, but eventually a bit of a scuffle ensued because I actually wanted to use the washroom and they never let me. And I knew I wasn't going to avoid going there. But all I asked actually was, can I use the washroom before I go? Because you never know those things. Yeah. It was 6 p.m. There was jam. You never know where they are taking you, how long they are going to be holding you in the car. But of course, they are trained not to answer in the affirmative to requests like that. They presume everybody is pretending now. So they bundled me in the car and blindfolded me, and took me. So I don't know, what was your question again?
This whole time, what are you thinking?
The whole time I'm thinking, let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. I kind of didn't think they would go this way because it's a bit primitive the way they did, honestly. And but maybe it's nothing more than I expect from this regime. Then again, honestly. So I'm just thinking, let's see how this goes.
In the 4 days that you were held, what were you thinking? You mentioned that you were tortured. We spoke to somebody earlier who said you were not tortured. I'm sure you watched the story.
Well, of course you expect that. You expect that from them. So I'll just leave it up to them, to the listeners or the viewers, to decide between me and them who is telling lies. But then there are people, of course, who are expert at telling lies, and it's them, not me. And they tell lies all the time. I was seeing a story somewhere linking me to Rwanda, which they know is a lie, but just trying to justify the amount of violence and torture that was inflicted on me for pure discourse. And things which even some of their people have had rebuttals, and which could have been handled in that way. But then, to justify it, they will put all these things, put all that, plant things and plant that. Nothing new. It's par for the course. I kind of expect it. I didn't expect they would say there was torture, but there was. Yeah. Okay, so I am the one telling the truth. But then, of course, I will leave it up to other people to decide between this regime and Joseph Kabuleta, who is telling the truth.
What was your biggest concern while you were being held?
My family, my kids, freedom of speech in the country. I'm saying, if I'm being taken through this, what about people who actually,
Well, you're not the first person to be held for this particular offense.
No, I'm not. I'm not the first person, neither will I be the last. And there's no guarantee that I won't be there again myself. So there's nothing new really there.
What's the motivation for Kabuleta's weekly rants?
Expression, discourse, conversations. That's it. That's what Facebook is about. So I can decide to put conversations on anything, and I haven't always written things about government or even about governance.
Yeah, but what's informing that now?
No, the point is, throughout the discourse, I've written about religion, I've written about individuals, I've written about sports, I've written about government, throughout in those rants, those same rants. So there is no specificity on either governance or government. But it cannot be taken out of the subjects I write about, because I'm a Ugandan, and I think I have a right to comment on how I'm governed, as long as it is, I'm not attacking people who are not in public office. As long as they are in public office, I believe that they do not expect that they are infallible and nobody will be criticized. They are not God. Even God is criticized. Okay? And his son, Jesus Christ. So we you read into that whatever you will.
What were you thinking when you were coming out? Were you broken? Were you determined to do more? Do we get to see another weekly rant coming up? What is your thought process?
What we'll say about the weekly rants. The thing is, I was not broken. I was not broken. I have God. I have the Spirit of God in me. It takes, I don't know how that could break me down. It cannot, honestly. It really cannot. And if it had been approached in a different way, it could actually have had better results. Because you see, persuasion, we are in an era of persuasion, not of violent force. Even the politics that currently is politics of persuasion. If there was a time when everybody involved, even on the continent, even abroad, President of America had to prove he had fought in Vietnam and so on and so forth, until Obama comes and he has not fought any war whatsoever. He probably doesn't even know how to assemble a gun, but uses the power of persuasion. Now that shows that politics has kind of changed. Now these are people who are stuck in the past, where you cannot come up with a valid argument, in spite of all the people who you pay to do PR for you. You cannot come up with a proper valid argument to dismantle Kabuleta, so you think you have to inflict torture on him to silence him because you cannot answer him back. Now I don't know which one is easier, because it's an open field. I say something, they have their very good writers who can say things which would make mine perhaps look stupid, and they would probably achieve more.
Or like you mentioned earlier, you would have wanted them to, interact with you intellectually, same way you did. What were you told upon your release, and what is your plan now?
I'm still on bond, so I have to show up tomorrow in Chirek at 9 a.m. And so I will, but I was charged, of course, with the same thing that everybody has been charged. First of all, I was charged with offending the peace and the whatever, privacy and what of the first son. Then that was on Saturday. That's the charge sheet I signed against. Then that was torn to pieces, and then on Tuesday it was turned from the first son to the president. So I don't know what to expect really.
And your plan?
My plan in regard to what?
To yourself.
Going ahead with my life as it has been. Unless, of course, it's interrupted again, and perhaps I do another stint there, but I will go ahead with my life as it has been. Nothing changes about me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joseph Kabuleta. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate you coming in the night here to speak with us. And that was Newsnight for tonight. Let's move on to other stories. The families of 2 Ugandans who recently died in Kuwait are distraught after failing to secure the return of their loved ones' bodies. The families are now blaming the labor export company that secured the 2 men employment in Kuwait for not doing enough to facilitate the return of the bodies.